All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jeff Standridge, and I serve as the managing director of the Conductor. And we are so glad to have you with us tonight for our December holiday edition, if you will, of our Game Changers. So thank you for being here. Tonight, I am joined by Darrell Amy. We're going to learn a lot about Darrell. Darrell, it's great to have you.
It's great to be here, Jeff. Thanks for having me in.
Absolutely. I'll tell you a little bit about Darrell. Darrell is on a mission to help generous companies grow their revenue. He's been in the B2B, that's the business-to-business marketing and sales space for about 27 years, from mid-sized organizations to large enterprise organizations. He's worked with for creating digital marketing and sales strategies with hundreds of companies. He's consulted with Fortune 500 technology firms as well. He knows his way around the sales shop. He knows what does work. He knows what doesn't work. Darrell's also a podcast host. He hosts the Revenue Growth Podcast as well as the co-host the Selling from the Heart podcast. He speaks frequently. He's frequently a podcast guest. He is also an author, and we're going to learn much about his latest book called Revenue Growth Engine that I'm sure he'll tell us about tonight. He also leads Man Alive Expedition and co-chairs the Kingdom Missions Fund, so he's very involved in his faith-based activities there. He loves to sail, hike, work in his wood shop. He's married to Leslie, and they live in Conway and enjoy spending time with their 3 children and 4 grandchildren. Darrell, once again, thanks for being with us.
It's great to be here, Jeff. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. Darrell and I have known each other for a number of years, even though we don't get to work together on a regular basis. But we did come across each other. Gosh, I guess it was about 7 or 8, 9 years ago.
A decade ago, yeah. We were working on a startup, and
I remember.
I think that's where we met. So
I believe you're right.
Great.
Maybe like at Michelangelo's or somewhere here close downtown. I remember
somewhere back. Back when we used to go hang out.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, Darrell, what I'd like to do is before we jump into all of the professional stuff about who you are and what you do, I shared a little bit about that. We want to hear straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But before we do that, I want us to focus on Darrell Amy, the person. So I want you to tell us a little bit about you, and let us get to know you.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Canadian kid. I married a Southern girl. And so I grew up in London, Ontario. But when I was young, my great-grandparents had a homestead just north of Clinton up in the mountains, a little town called Botkenberg. So our summer vacations were driving all the way from Ontario, Canada, down to Arkansas to see my great-grandparents. And I kind of fell in love with the Ozark Mountains back then. And so as fate would have it, I ended up doing my junior and senior year of college at Harding in Searcy. And while I was there, met a Southern girl, and the rest is history. I've been living in the state here now since 1990. So I guess this will be 31 years, and absolutely love it. And so in Conway now for, 2007, so about 13 years in Conway, which is absolutely the favorite place I've ever lived.
Right. I know exactly where Botkenberg is.
You do? So, good.
I do.
That's my great-grandparents' homestead right there on the right when you drive by.
Fantastic. That's great. Yeah. Are they still there, or does family still own that, I guess?
No. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, fingers crossed, I may have the opportunity to acquire some of that property and
very good
cabin up there, which is one of my dreams for the next couple of years. So thanks for asking.
Very good.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, you did last 2 years of college at Harding in Searcy?
Yes. Okay. Well, it ended up being 3. So I got done with that business degree and thought that I might want to go to law school. So my story, and this is what pulled me into my career. So I did that last year of college, tagged on a political science degree. And at the time, I was waiting for 2 years for my wife to catch up. So I thought, I'll go get a job in sales. This will be a great way to make some money and get started. And then the plan was to go to law school. Well, a couple of years into my sales career, I figured out that people only call attorneys when there are problems, and I don't like problems. I thought I was just going to be standing in a courtroom, like on TV. But the other thing is, I fell in love with sales. I was making more money than my friends who were graduating from law school, and really fell in love with just the whole concept of entrepreneurship and the spirit behind sales and the sales profession. So gotcha. that started that journey, and I've been a sales junkie now for almost 3 decades coming out of that. So yeah.
You know, you and I don't look that old to have 3 decades of experience. So,
Well, hey, a baby face will get you a long way. So it may pay
yeah.
off someday. I will say what was really funny, Jeff. So when I graduated, I'm this Canadian kid. I had this baby face. I'm 21 years old. I look like I was probably 15 or 16 and a Canadian accent. So if you can imagine trying to sell something in the business world in Arkansas, getting the, A, you ain't from around here, son. And second, like, why aren't you in school? was the looks that I got all the time. So
Yeah, it's
now
like
later on pays off. Back
yeah.
then it was maybe not so great.
Yeah, back then it was like, where's your dad? Is he parking the car? So
pretty much. Yeah. What are you doing in my office?
So when you were growing up, this is the critical question here to test your Canadianness, if you will.
Okay.
When you were growing up, how did you pronounce the word again?
I can do the rest of the podcast in my or live cast here in my Canadian accent if you'd like me to, Jeff. It's no problem. We can do it over and over again.
No, that's fine.
I'm losing it. It's funny when if I go back up to Canada, I'll pick it back up in a day or so.
Yeah.
And but man, you live down here in the South. I learned real quickly I needed to slow down.
Yeah.
So
we had a Canadian pastor who would come to our church, and an evangelist who would come to our church occasionally, and it always struck me because he said again, and so I knew he was Canadian then because he said again.
We've got all kinds of things. We park our car in the garage and we eat pasta and salsa.
Yeah.
And we've got schedules and it's wonderful.
Well, Darrell, let's shift gears here a little bit and let's talk about your business career. So you're at Hendrix. You decide to get a second degree in political science. Going to go to college. Going to go to law school, and instead you hop into sales. So pick it up there and bring us up to today, if you will.
So the funny, it's never quite so glamorous, right? So I graduated from business school at Harding, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't. My family wasn't in the business community. My dad was a contractor, and so I grew up swinging a hammer and all of that. But I knew I wanted to be in business, and so I really just didn't have any mentors. And by the way, that's what I really love about what's going on here in the state now. And so I got a job, Jeff, selling memberships to the Greater Little Rock Chamber of Commerce. And it was wonderful because I got to meet all kinds of people, and it was terrible because I almost starved to death. I had no sales experience. And so one day I walked into, I'm out just desperately trying to sell these $300 a year memberships, which you can imagine how many of those it takes to make the mortgage payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 21-year-old kid, and I walk in this office, and they're a personnel office, and they said, "Hey, would you like to interview for a real sales job?" So it's pretty much how that worked. And so I ended up going to work for this company. It was called Lanier Worldwide. It was a division of 3M at the time, and they sold dictation equipment to doctors and attorneys. And for those of you who don't know what that is, back in the day, doctors and attorneys used to literally carry around tape recorders because they didn't want to type. They would dictate their notes. So I heard that. I was like, doctors and attorneys, I want to go to law school. This is fantastic. I'm in. So I go through the interview process, go on the field ride. I get back to the office, and the district manager in Little Rock says, "Darrell, we got great news for you. However, the good news is we want to offer you a job. The bad news is we don't have any positions selling dictation equipment," which is really hilarious now, 30 years later, because that's so like obsolete, it's been obsolete for decades. So the good news is we want to offer you a job. The bad news is selling copy machines. And I was like, look, I don't care. I've been trying to sell Chamber of Commerce memberships. So what ended up happening, unbeknownst to me, I ended up entering one of the most competitive dog eat dog, hardcore sales things. They sent me off to sales training. And I learned how to sell. And it was, those years of my life were incredibly valuable because there I was, once again, on the street, hardcore, very competitive, learned how to prospect, learned how to close business, and also had a lot of opportunities unfold. A couple of years later, I was a sales manager for the state, and which I was 24 years old, maybe at
Mm-hmm.
26. I had the opportunity to run the entire operations for the company, for the state, sales, service, administration, P&L, responsibility. I
Mm-hmm.
was way over my head at the time, but it was such, it was kind of a baptism by fire, and it was a really helpful time because during those years, I learned how to sell and I learned how to run a business. And I learned those mostly through making bad mistakes. I had some few mentors along the way, but I mean, I got thrown into the fire and learned, how to do that, how to recruit and train people and all of that. So that set me on the journey. Next thing you know, I ended up getting recruited by a Japanese technology company that probably everyone's heard of, Toshiba. They wanted a
Mm-hmm.
regional manager. And so at 26 years old, I hopped on an airplane out to Irvine, California, and walked into, what's the restaurant at Newport Beach, Fashion Island. So I'm the kid from
Mm-hmm.
Little Rock. Next thing you know, walking into Newport Beach, into the restaurant with all my new fellow team members who were all at least 15 or 20 years older than me. Turned out nobody wanted to take the state of Arkansas as their territory. And so I had an incredible opportunity to then begin working with really entrepreneurial businesses across 4 different states, helping them learn how to sell, grow their business, build business plans. And it was a lot of fun. That was 1997 to 2004. So yeah,
Okay.
worked with organizations all over the region and got a really, the first part of my career was that baptism by fire into sales and then running a company. This was just exposure to dozens of different businesses. I got to see what worked, what didn't. I got to see forward thinking people. I got to see some backward thinking people. I got to see the effects of all of that. And also had the opportunity now to be a representative for a global 50 technology brand going into large organizations and selling. I didn't win the deal. Axiom was one of those years ago up in Chicago. I remember that with Toshiba. But it was fun. It was an incredible experience. And but I got bored. I wanted to, I was looking around, I was looking at my peers, and they were wonderful people, but most of them were at the pinnacle of their career and had been there for a long time and weren't going to leave. And I was like, that's just not me. I'm not going to do this. And I loved the time I was there, but I ended up coming in one day and saying, I'm going to start, I want to start my own company. And during that time, I got bored with all the hardware in that business, got fascinated with selling software, and in particular, workflow management software, document management, all these. It was a huge opportunity, but nobody in that realm of the tech world had figured out how to sell it yet. So and I was teaching people how to sell it. So I hung out a shingle in 04, all the way from Maumelle, Arkansas, started a global training company to learn how to sell software. And that sent me on an entrepreneurial journey that I've been on now for the last 17 years.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your company now and where you spend the vast majority of your time today. Give us a day in the life of Darrell Amy.
Yeah. So all of that 17 years of sales training, and my very first client that I trained in sales, a great company down in Houston, the owner came to me and said, Darrell, what you taught our sales team is fantastic, but our website and our marketing doesn't say anything about it. Do you build websites? And of course, first client, I think everyone knows this is entrepreneurial on this call. Your first client, you say, yes, sir, we build websites. I'd actually built one for my church and for the Arkansas Prostate Cancer Foundation, just as a hobby. But next thing you knew, I was doing sales training and then started this marketing agency. And we ended up it was so cool with the niche we had. We ended up being the specialist in training in this industry for, and we had clients, and it was really cool. I was running this out of Maumelle and then Conway with clients all over the US, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were doing sales training, and I spun up a marketing agency out of that, which brought me to where I am today, which is having one foot in the sales world for the last 27 years, another foot in the marketing world with all of the evolution of what's going on in digital marketing and the transformation of the buyer and all of that. I'd watch those two worlds. You know, we talk in the business world a lot about sales and marketing alignment, and I'd watch the opposite happening, just going in different directions, like driving your car down the freeway and wrestling it back and forth. And so all of that led me to go, you know what, we got to figure out how to make all this work together. And so that's when the light bulb came on in 2019. I was speaking at a conference, and I realized this isn't about marketing. As much as I love the latest marketing strategies, it's not about sales as much as I'm a sales junkie to the core. What it's actually about is driving revenue. So I began with that premise and said, okay, well, what would it take? What would an organization need to have in place to have a high performance, fully functioning revenue growth engine where marketing and sales were aligned with the goals of the company, which are how do we drive revenue? How do we accelerate our growth? And so a day in the life now is working with organizations, helping them develop revenue growth plans. So starting with goals all the way through what do we need to put in place to hit those goals. I get to talk now on a lot of podcasts, and it's a blast getting to share that message. And then I'm still very involved in the sales world. And so I'm a partner, in addition to Revenue Growth Engine, in Selling from the Heart. And we have the opportunity to do sales training in some incredible organizations right now. It's just a blast. So everything I do, Jeff, is all about working alongside companies and going, how can we help you grow faster?
Very good. Very good. That's a good segue that we'll hop onto here shortly. You're beginning to sing sing from my sheet of music here about the alignment of sales and marketing. You know, the salespeople always complain that marketing's not aligned with them. And then the engineers always complain that sales is not aligned with them. You know, you're not selling what we have, go sell what we have. And so I'm glad to see that you're focusing on bringing those two sales and marketing components together. So your new book, you released it first start of 2020, pre-COVID, is that right?
Actually, it came out in June, so it was scheduled to release. It was scheduled to release in April, and of course, that last my last conference, I would always joke I called it the Last Supper because it was the last time I was at a conference hanging out with people. Was Sales 3.0 down in Orlando, and it was scheduled to release a couple of weeks after that. But when COVID happened, I wanted to hit the pause button for just a little while to really understand kind of the trajectory of where all this was going, let some of the dust settle. But it also gave me the opportunity to reframe a little bit of the introduction. It's interesting when you write a book. I was just talking to somebody yesterday about how even throughout this year, we're 6 months into the release of this book. The thinking when you write a book, you kind of draw a line in the sand, but your thinking continues to evolve on all of that. I almost wish like the book was more like a website so you could keep updating it as you go. But it was kind of cool that I'm glad we got to release it after the pandemic and this C-level shift we've seen. Because it did give me the opportunity to reframe some of this, much to the chagrin of my editor. I said, hey, I'm going to rewrite this. Can you fix this for me and get it launched? But it was kind of cool. And in the middle of this year, and now as we're, looking into 2021, which is a make or break year for a lot of organizations, I'm really grateful that I've had the opportunity to come in with a model and a framework that is, companies are able to use to rationalize and think about, okay, how are we going to plan, what goals are we going to set? It's a huge question right now. How do you set goals in an uncertain marketplace? And what do we need to put in place? Like, if growth was easy, quotes around easy, it's not easy right now. Right. If you could get away without being strategic a couple of years ago, you can't anymore. And so, the timeliness of it, it's been fun having a platform to be able to introduce these ideas to organizations and go in and be helpful.
Great. Well, we've been informational here to talk about Darrell and the person, and Darrell the professional. I want to shift and talk about revenue growth engine, how to align sales and marketing to accelerate growth. That's the title and subtitle of your book. And I'd like you to maybe start with the in your preface you talk about the two epiphanies that kind of serve as the basis. One is there are only two ways to grow revenue, and then number two, that ideal clients accelerate growth. We're going to shift to the instructional mode now. Talk a little bit about this, because we'll have a number of salespeople and aspiring salespeople, small business owners. And as we know, small business owners are in fact salespeople, or they should be. So talk to us about, talk to us about those epiphanies to start.
Well, this first epiphany that there are only two ways to grow revenue is actually extremely powerful right now. If you boil it all down, in any company, the only two ways to grow revenue are to add more new clients or to sell more to your current clients. And what I've found is most companies are usually good at one or the other. It's very rare to find a company that's good at both at the same time. If you're only good at one, you're going to enjoy linear growth. Let's go this way, right? Up and to the right. You're going to enjoy linear growth. If you can get both going at the same time, net new and cross-selling more to your current clients, you actually begin to enjoy exponential growth. And this is, these conversations we get to have with companies. I remember going in the early days of Revenue Growth Engine to one of our clients in West Palm Beach, and it was sitting down there around their conference table. Great technology company, works in South Florida. And I said, why are we here? You're doing this revenue conference. What are your goals? Oh, we want to grow net new business, Darrell. I said, great. What's your goal? Well, it's modest. We want to grow 10% year over year. I said, fantastic. I said, what did you do last year? And I'm expecting like we did 2%, we did backwards or whatever. They said we did 9.8%. And I said, congratulations. You can round that up and you hit the goal. Why am I here? But the reality is that company's mindset of growth was we got to get more new customers. Now, it just so happens that company had invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in a new managed services initiative, and they'd hired people, got partners. And so I said, hey, by the way, this new initiative that you have, how's that going? Everyone looks down at the table, and the owner shakes his head. What we began to realize is if this company will maintain their trajectory of growth for net new, they had a great sales team in South Florida, and simultaneously begin to put the processes in place, the marketing and sales processes to cross-sell and upsell to their current client base and grow that revenue per client, that now 10% growth in both areas would mean that business doubled revenue in around 36 months. Yeah. And the light bulbs came on and they said, if we can put the processes in place in the area where we're weak, then we've got a chance. And so that's what they began to do. And they entered into 2020, and they're able to, they're the planes going off the runway and going up and to the right. And that's the mindset for all salespeople, entrepreneurs, business owners, enterprise executives. It doesn't matter. The number to look at is not the total revenue number. Two numbers to look at are the drivers. How many clients do you have? And what's your revenue per client? And those two numbers need to be growing. There's a lot of companies that are growing top line revenue, but they're only growing one of those two numbers. Right. But when you grow both at the same time, amazing things happen. And that's where I get fired up.
Fantastic. So let's talk about epiphany number two, ideal clients accelerate growth.
So this is one of my favorite books from this last year that I discovered is Mike Michalowicz's book, The Pumpkin Principle. I love Mike Michalowicz, but this Pumpkin Principle book is the Pumpkin Plan. Sorry. His analogy is if you want to grow big pumpkins, focus on the big pumpkins. Like, don't let the small little ones suck away all your energy. And what ends up happening is when we go into a business and I say, look, tell me about your favorite clients, and we can all think about our favorite clients right now. And I mean an ideal client that values what you do, appreciates your company, sees value, doesn't price shop you every time. They have loyalty, they give referrals, and they have the ability and need to buy everything that you sell. Now take that client and then say, okay, well, what if that client bought everything that our company offers over the next 10 years? And my marketing friends always like to say lifetime value of a client. To me, that's been always like really fuzzy and out there. So I say 10 years, you keep them for 10 years, they buy everything that you buy. I'm thinking of this. I'm thinking of West Palm Beach now, probably because it's so cold. But this company, I just remember being in the room. We were having this epiphany with them, and I've led many companies through this epiphany. I said we started writing down on the whiteboard all the things that they could buy and the value. The 10-year value of their best fit client was $866,000. Okay, move the decimal over 1 point. They're worth $86,000 if they're 100% sold, all in, full meal deal. They bought everything the company offers. And then just for fun, of course, that moment was a light bulb moment where the owner's eyes get really big and everyone's like, wow. And I'm not talking about selling Exxon Mobil or, a Fortune 500 company. I'm talking about a best fit client for them. Then I said, well, tell me about your average client, the up and down the street client, the bread and butter one that you can't bear to let go of, right? The ones that you go, well, we need these people. All right. Tell me about them. 10-year value. Remember, ideal client, 866,000. 10-year value of an average client. That is if they stuck around for 10 years, because most of them were price shoppers, 36,000. So you take the contrast in that light bulb moment when companies realize it takes, an ideal client, a best fit client that appreciates what we do and we're a good fit for, is often worth 20 to 30x what an average bread and butter client is. Now, I'm not saying fire all your clients.
Right.
I'm not saying don't take orders from people. But what I did say to that sales team is in South Florida, and I'm sure we could be, there were roughly 90,000 businesses in that market that were candidates for the products and services this company sold. This particular company had 10 salespeople. Now you do the math on that in terms of what it would take for the salespeople to cover that market. If they prospected 24 hours a day for like 3 years, they might talk to everybody in the market. So we defined it down to their ideal fit clients. It ended up being like 2,500 clients. They put in a target account program. They said, here, if you're on our sales team, you can take an order for anyone. You can talk to anybody. But these 2,500 clients, they will absolutely 100% all the time hear from us. And marketing, same thing, can market to the whole world. But these accounts, we have a strategy and we're going to execute on these 2,500 ideal clients, ideal prospects. And this moment of clarity when you realize in your business that not everybody, just because they have the ability to buy something from you, doesn't mean they're the ones that you should be focused on. And I would say to everybody listening in tonight, the more you can clarify your definition of an ideal client, the more successful you're going to be, because the people that aren't ideal clients, not only do they not give you as much money, they usually complain. They're usually, because they're not a good fit. They're not happy. And so when companies begin to get clarity on who their ideal clients are, it really helps them focus their sales and marketing efforts around who's going to get the most value out of the organization. And that's a game changer for accelerating revenue growth as well.
Very good. Very good. All right. We're talking to Darrell Amy. Darrell is the author of the international bestseller Revenue Growth Engine. We're so proud to have him with us tonight. If you're tuning in on Facebook Live, please, and we're going to be opening up the floor for questions in a couple of moments. Just put your questions in the comments section of Facebook, and we will pull those out and pose those questions to Darrell a little bit shortly. We're talking about his book, Revenue Growth Engine, How to Align Sales and Marketing to Accelerate Growth. And so, Darrell, let's continue on. You talk about 4 basic things in the book, or the book's organized around 4 basic things, the first of which is force, fuel, flywheels, and then build the engine. So talk us through each of the 4 of those. Remember, we'll have a number of salespeople, small business owners, and others. So this is your teaching moment here for our audience.
Well, good. Well, we talked about the force, which is your ideal clients. Focus on your ideal clients. And then we got to look at the fuel that goes in your engine. Now, if you have an engine and you have bad gas in your engine, if there's water in the gas or you have the wrong fuel, you're not going to get very far. What's the fuel for growth? The fuel for growth is your message. You need a message that resonates with your ideal clients. Theodore Levitt's one of my favorite marketing authors. He was a Harvard Business School professor. He used to walk into his classes at Harvard famously on the first day of marketing class, and he would hold up a drill bit. Well, you probably all heard this story, right? He would hold up the drill bit and go, nobody in the history of Home Depot, Lowe's, or insert hardware store here ever went to buy a drill bit. What they went to buy was a hole, right? And it's so funny. Seth Godin, one of my other favorite authors, would say, well, they didn't buy the hole. They actually wanted the hole so they could hang something on their wall and look good to their friends. And Donald Miller would take it a step further and say, well, they wanted to look good to their friends because they're afraid if they got isolated, their caveman brain said they'd get eaten by a tiger. So it doesn't matter whether you need a hole, whether you want to look good to your friends or you're afraid of getting eaten by a tiger. You didn't buy a drill bit. You bought the outcome. And this is where so many companies miss it, because especially in startup world, in the early stage, I'm a huge Crossing the Chasm fan. We get so enamored with our product and how great it is and the feature we just added in the new release and all this stuff that we forget that nobody buys our product. They actually buy the outcome our product delivers. And oh man, we get fired up. I just see it in my peripheral. I got to interview, this guy's great. I know we're here to talk about my book, Bob Mesta, Demand Side Sales 101. I talked to Bob on our podcast last week. He's a product innovator. And he, with Clayton Christensen at Harvard Business School, came up with a jobs to be done theory. And he said in the book, it's just brilliant. He said, no one buys a product. They hire your product for a job to be done. And here's the deal. The fuel, if you put the fuel in your growth engine and it's all about you and your product and how great you are, and nobody
cares. 90% of salespeople. So we all get the emails. We all get the LinkedIn messages with someone who wants to, pardon my expression, vomit out everything about them and their company.
That's right.
Thinking that if they can get it all out there on the paper, that we will read it and pick up on something.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Instead, what buyers buy are outcomes. So it's interesting what I have companies do. Everyone's got a product inventory. You know, we all have the price book of all the products we sell. I say you need to create an outcomes inventory. You need to create an inventory of all the business outcomes you can deliver to your clients. That then becomes the fuel for your growth. That becomes the ingredients for all of your sales conversations, all of your marketing messages, all of your tweets, all of your webinars, you name it. They all need to lead with an outcome. And so, you know, you need to, and the best way to figure out what outcomes are important to your clients, talk to them. So, you know, talk to them, ask them, or hire somebody to write a case study. I used to write a lot of case studies. And when I did, I would talk to the salesperson first and I say, why did they buy? Tell me the story. And I didn't want to waste the customer's time. So I got the backstory from the sales rep. Sales rep would tell me one thing about why they bought. And usually the sales rep would say, well, they bought because we saved them money. And I'm like, okay, great. Why else did they buy? Well, mainly because we saved them money. And then I'd talk to the client and they would start rattling off all these different outcomes that they were getting, problems that the solution helped them solve, the things that helped them achieve. And I, a lot of times at the end go, hey, by the way, are you tracking the ROI on this? No, not really. We just like this. And I go back to the salesperson and go, do you really want to know why your product, your clients are buying or what they're buying? They're not buying. In fact, you probably could have charged 10% more than they were currently spending because of all the additional benefit that they receive. And so when we sell from outcomes, we get attention and we build value. And attention is critical at the beginning of a sales process. Value is essential during the sales process if you like making money. So, and so the fuel for your growth engine, figure out what your clients are actually buying. It's not your product, it's the outcomes your product or service delivers.
Well, we'll switch to the third component here in a moment. Before we do, I had probably one of the best prospecting emails I ever received a few years ago. She said, Jeff, my name's Jennifer, and I have an idea for how I can help you get your next 100 customers. I've done it for company A, company B, company C, and I'm confident I can do it for you. Give me a shout.
Perfect.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. I gave her a
Yes.
shot. Right. Ended up not being a fit, but she sure
Doesn't
got my
matter. She
attention.
got attention. And that's the
Exactly.
thing. We filter
Yep.
whenever we all have filters in front of us. The only thing that gets through are the outcomes we're looking for in our life. So
That's right. Yeah.
yep.
So let's talk about the flywheels.
Yeah. So an engine. So I'm a big, I mentioned that I sold business process automation software. So I'm a big fan of process. We learned about it in business school. I did my master's at UALR, by the way, along the way. And, but what I've realized is you go in a accounting department, finance department, processes, go in a shipping and receiving department, processes, go in an HR department, processes, go in a sales department. It's like the Wild West, right? You hear the tumbleweeds, the eagle flying overhead, couple, hired gun salespeople, and the sales leaders are like, man, just go out and sell something. We need to, just go. We need someone with a book of, and it's all, there's no process. Marketing in a lot of organizations is not much different.
That's right.
Even though there's a lot of technology, a lot of times it's like, well, let's run an event, go do this, run a promotion, there's no process. So what I realized is if we want to get consistent at net new and cross sell, every organization needs to ask themselves, what are the core marketing and sales processes that need to be in place to drive net new business and to cross sell more to our current clients? And so it's interesting as we get to have those conversations in light of their ideal prospect and ideal clients. What do we need to put in place? And, the reality is a lot of organizations, if you're good at net new, you've probably got some level of process there. I mean, you're in business. So, but if you look at the areas where you're weak, like cross-selling, and start to put in some simple but powerful sales and marketing processes, I'm still thinking of South Florida. So I'll say, just tell the rest of that story. They said, we're terrible at cross-selling. So they identified their ideal clients, which ended up being Pareto principle, 80-20, top 20% of their clients. And they said, from a sales standpoint, we're going to have a new program where we do quarterly business reviews. Doesn't sound super exciting, but guess when the last time they'd done a quarterly business review was? Never. They closed the deal and moved on to the next one. Tiffany Bova was the chief evangelist for Salesforce, wrote Growth IQ. Tiffany, I saw her a couple of years ago at a tech sales conference, speaking to a room of 2,500 tech sales execs and salespeople. And she goes, you guys are crazy. And I'm like, you go, Tiffany. She goes, you're like the gold prospectors that go out and sell your life, drive across the country, dig for gold in the Yukon, find a gold mine, and high five each other and go, let's go find another gold mine. Right.
Yeah.
So they actually started meeting with their current customers on a regular basis, on a quarterly basis. And we coach them on how to have business conversation about the outcomes that they wanted in their business, the goals and challenges. Simultaneously, the marketing department said, you know what? American Express has a customer loyalty program. American Airlines has a customer loyalty program. My local sandwich shop has a customer loyalty program, but we don't do anything for our ideal clients. So they created a client loyalty program, which, by the way, one of the features of was you get a quarterly business review for free. But and now they've just started thinking about what, there were other things that they did, but it wasn't rocket science. It wasn't like they had to start a whole new department or change anything. They just said, every ideal client gets a quarterly business review, teach you how to do it. Here's client loyalty program, and revenue starts ramping up. And it's not, and it's all like the flywheels, right? You've got to look at it like we're not building a one-time campaign. We're done with that. We're building processes that are going to create, predictable revenue. I get to talk to Mary Lou Tyler next week on my podcast. Oh, yeah. I'm really excited about, but
Aaron Ross and Mary Lou Tyler, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so that's the mindset right now, is saying, okay, how do we make things in sales and marketing processes? And when, as you're scaling up your company, this is what Ray Kroc and McDonald's did, right? They said, let's build this like we were going to scale it. And they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but you can do that in sales and marketing now, and say, let's build this so that we can have these processes in place that become flywheels for our growth engine.
Very good. Now, and folks, in a couple of moments, we're going to move to questions. So encourage you to continue putting those questions into the comments section of the Facebook Live. If you're on Zoom, you can chat them to us, and we'll get those in front of Darrell. Darrell, the last section of your book is about building the engine. Before we go to questions, tell us about that.
Well, you can't build something all at once, you know, and I think that when you go into an organization, I think what you need to do is you need to look at, every organization has a growth engine. This book actually came together while I was mowing my lawn. I actually like to mow my lawn. I get like an hour of uninterrupted podcasts, straight lines, you know, all that. So I'm mowing my lawn one day, and I'm looking down the driveway at my car, and I had this this realization that both my lawnmower and my car have an engine. And the reality is my lawnmower has about 2 cylinders, maybe. My car has 6 finely tuned cylinders. My lawnmower goes 2 miles an hour. My car is measured in 0 to 60, right? So what you need to do, what I challenge people to do, is to look at your current sales and marketing processes, and, you know, start with goals, ideal client, you know, outcomes, and then go, okay, let's look at our current sales and marketing processes. What's missing? What's missing? And when we find what's missing, then we ask the question, where's the low hanging fruit? So, you know, a lot of times it's not like you have to overhaul everything. You look for the engine analogy is, what are the cylinders that are missing? Can we put another cylinder into our growth engine? Work on those, you know, 90 days at a time, building cylinder in sales and marketing. And you'll look up in 12 to 18 months and you'll have a 12-cylinder engine that's firing and running. So don't try to change the world overnight, but look at the areas of your business that you could get the best and highest impact the quickest. And usually that's by adding something in an area where you're not strong.
Very good. Very good. Again, we're talking to Darrell Amy, the author of the international bestseller Revenue Growth Engine. Getting my tongue tied here, or my tang tungled, as I said before. Got a couple of questions here I'm going to pose to you. What growth have you seen in your business since the release of your book? And this came from one of our Facebook viewers.
Yeah, thanks for the question. What's been fun, I spent most of my career in a narrow segment of the technology world. So 6 months now into releasing my book, I'm talking to people in all different kinds of industries. So it's been fantastic in terms of just opening the door. You know, they say, Jeff, that a book is the world's best business card, and there's a lot of truth to that. So it really has opened up a ton of opportunities, and even in the midst of you know, I know this year's been really tough with the pandemic, but it's been an amazing year for me. So it's been phenomenal. The other thing is I've gotten, you know, in the process of releasing the book and podcasting, I've been able to meet some of my most admired and respected people like Mary Lou Tyler and Brent Adamson and, you know, all these people that, you know, so yeah, it's been fantastic. It's been quite a rush.
Very good. Very good. Someone here from our Facebook Live audience as well asked, anyone can learn to sell, but what can I learn to make me stand out over those natural salespeople?
The natural salespeople. So,
is there such a thing?
I don't. Well, I could talk about this for an hour. Where to start? No. Say no. No. I think that natural salespeople are usually, we mean someone that's just really relational and, you know, that type of thing. I think that's certainly a component, but I mentioned Brent Adamson. I'm a huge fan of the Challenger sale, and right after the last big recession, you know, they did that study and they said, what's the best type of salesperson? And, you know, everyone assumed it was the high five and let's go hang out, have drinks and have fun salesperson. And they were actually like the lowest in terms of effectiveness. What they discovered was the type of salesperson that did the best was someone that could bring value to the table. Teach, tailor, take control. And, so I think that, yes, relational skills, of course, sales skills can be learned, but the real question to me is, what value are you able to bring as a sales professional to the conversation? You work for a company as a sales professional. Hopefully it's a great company. Hopefully they have a great product, but guess what? All your competitors have great products. And
Yeah.
if not, they will in 6 months. So the real question I have to say as a sales professional is, what value am I bringing to the table? We're launching in January 11th through 22nd, the 2021 Authentic Selling Challenge. And my business partner in that wrote Selling from the Heart, and he's big on authentic relationships. And I would say you've got to give a rip. You have to care. You have to bring passion. And maybe that's not learned. Maybe that's a natural. But the other thing is you got to bring authentic value to the table. And that's learned. That's discipline. That's paying attention. That's learning. That's reading. That's investing in yourself so that you can invest in other people. I'd take that over the high-fiving, I know everybody. I was, president of my fraternity all day long.
Yeah, I always talk about intent counts more than technique, right? And if your intent is authentic and it comes from a true, basic, authentic desire to help your customer be successful, technique is very much secondary or even tertiary to that. That clients will overlook some blunders in sales technique if they know you, like you, trust you, and believe that you're being authentic and trying to help them.
Yeah, and I would add to that the intent is important, but you also have to have the insight,
Sure.
and you've got to bring some value to the table, and that's that's the authenticity side. It's the two sides of the coin: authentic relationship and authentic value.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions that come from the Facebook live audience? We encourage you to put those in the comments, and we'll get them in front of Darrell. Darrell, as you work with sales teams, I know you've got one of the endorsements from your books from Jeb Blunt, and his author of Fanatical Prospecting and Objections and what have you. I love his power hour analogy, where you bring people together, and my business partner, Glenn Crockett, and I have done this with a client we've been working with for about 3 years now, where we brought them in and told them to bring a list of ideal clients, dream list 100, bring that list. And we worked them through the idea of building out a prospecting script and role played it in the room with them, and then said, okay, you've got an hour. The one who schedules the most meetings wins. Now, they hated us for it. But 20 people and 60 minutes later, that had almost 150 meetings scheduled.
Right. And it's not rocket science, but here's what I would say on that. Cause I used to go do call blitzes for a little company that starts with H and ends in P. And we go out and do the same thing. But we'd leave and it would stop. And so what Jeb's an advocate for, and one of my company's licenses is training. We're actually delivering it. And what I really love about that model is what he advocates for is that becomes not an event, but that becomes a process.
Yeah.
And the other thing along that is not only is there, the reality is the phone is not dead. If you get a chance to go to Jeb's Outbound conference, by the way, it's the best sales conference out there. And I'm sure it'll be back in motion next year in Atlanta once we can travel again, but the phone is not dead. The reality though, is Forrester tells us it takes 10 to 14 touches to get a first in appointment. So, a lot of salespeople are like, well, they wouldn't take my call. That requires a process. And I love the technology that's out there right now to enable prospecting, multi-touch prospecting sequences. There's tons of innovation in that space right now. And so I would say, you got to have, the most important document in your life is your calendar. So you've got to prioritize and prospecting. It's got to be an appointment on your calendar that's immovable, unnegotiable, all of that. But it's got to be also done in the context of process.
Yeah.
So who are we going after? What's our process? And technology can support that too, which is cool.
Yeah, that's very good. Very good. Well, Darrell, we appreciate you being with us. I've wanted to get you on our Game Changers event for some time, and I know we've been talking about it for a while. So I appreciate you taking the time to spend with us tonight. Very valuable information. Tell us how people can find you, how they can get in touch with you, where they can buy your book, et cetera.
Well, the simplest way is if you just text the word revenue to 21,000. That's revenue to 21,000. You'll get access to our toolkit. And right now on the Revenue Growth Engine website, just pay shipping and handling and we get you a copy of the book. And I want to put whatever resources I can into your hands. Also, if you're in sales, check out 2021authenticselling.com, 2021authenticselling.com. That goes to the Authentic Selling Challenge that we're launching in January. And we've got a rock star list of speakers for an hour a day over 10 days to motivate us to get off to it and make 2021 the best year ever. So it's going to be exciting.
Fantastic. You heard it from the author himself. Text revenue to 21,000. That's revenue to 21,000. Get access to his toolkit. Darrell, I'm going to ask you one final question. And I told you I was going to do this. Give us one nugget. You know, if you were to reach back into the recesses of your sales toolbox, give us the best piece of advice to salespeople or small business owners who are responsible for generating revenue for their company. What's the best golden nugget that you can give them?
Wow, let's see. I'm going to go with this outcomes thing because I think it's a game changer. I really do. If you have bad fuel in your engine, and a lot of companies succeed to a certain level despite having bad gas in their engine. There we go. There you go. Made it all the way through without a blooper. But seriously,
and then leave it to me to laugh at it like a junior high boy.
10-year-old. But seriously though, you know, I think for you to head into 2021 with a firm understanding of the outcomes your clients are looking for, and it shifted. When COVID started, Gartner surveyed companies, same companies that wanted to buy productivity, efficiency, and scalability, all of a sudden wanted redundancy, resiliency, and remote working. Well,
so let's, and I don't mean to interrupt you. So talk us through briefly, if you're sitting down with a salesperson and you're going to guide them through this outcomes kind of thinking process. Let's say you've got an insurance agent, or you've got a financial services person, or you've got a software salesperson. Talk them through what they can do to rethink their message to start thinking about outcomes.
The best thing you can do is to talk to your clients. So, and don't ask questions about your product. Ask questions about their business in general. So questions like, hey, Jeff, as you're looking into 2021, I'm curious, you know, what are the biggest challenges you face in your business today? As you're looking into 2021 and beyond, what are the goals that you have for your organization right now? You may go, well, Darrell, why do I want to know those big picture things? I just sell this widget. Well, here's the deal. I believe that if you cannot hook your recommendation to one of the top 3 challenges or goals of a business, that you will always get put on the back burner of nice ideas we'll get around to someday. So you may have the best widget in the world, you may have the best SaaS product ever, but if you can't connect it to a top level goal or challenge, you know, that they have, then people are going to be nice to you.
Yeah.
But you won't sell anything. And by the way, the biggest competitor for every product is always the status quo. So
that's right.
Go salespeople, marketing people, talk to your clients and ask them about their personal or business challenges, depending on, you know, what market you're in, and really, and then go back to the office and go, okay, what can we do to help them overcome that challenge or hit that goal? What can we do to help them get that outcome? And message around that. You may go, well, my product does all this other stuff. No one cares.
That's right.
What they care about is how you can help them meet that outcome. And, you know, right now we're about to go through another C-level shift, right? The truckloads of vaccines started going out. We're going to hit a new normal at some point, hopefully. I don't know what that's going to be like, but I can tell you this, the outcomes that businesses want are probably going to shift. So you need to be aware of those. And the company that wins, the entrepreneur that wins, and the salesperson that wins is the one that satisfies the need And you only find that, you don't find that out sitting around your own conference table in your own echo chamber. You find that when you go out and you talk to your current clients.
Very good. Very good. Darrell, it's been a pleasure. Really appreciate you being with us.
Wow, my pleasure. And I love what's going on with the organization here. And just thanks for the energy you're bringing to the business and startup community. It's awesome.
It's our pleasure. Our pleasure. Thank you for joining Conductor. We've had Darrell Amy. He's the author of Revenue Growth Engine, How to Align Sales and Marketing to Accelerate Growth. If you want to connect with him and learn more about Revenue Growth Engine, text revenue to 21,000. That's revenue to 21,000. Thank you all for being with us. We're excited to have you here. We look forward to the holidays. Stay well, stay safe, and have a very happy holiday season.